If you've ever found yourself spiraling down a late night rabbit hole of what am I meant to do and why haven't I found it yet? And let's be honest, who hasn't? Then you're in the right place. I'm Theresa White, career clarity expert and 5-time certified career coach, and I'm here to help you navigate the question of how to find a career that truly lights you up. On Career Clarity Unlocked, we're all about those light bulb moments. I'm talking to people who are still trying to figure out what they're meant to do, coaching them live to reach that magical, yes, this is it moment. And we'll also hear from those who've already found their dream careers and figure out exactly how they did it. Whether you're looking for inspiration or actionable advice on finding a career you love, I've got you covered. Time to unlock some career clarity. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Career Clarity Unlocked. Today, we're diving into a topic that so many of you are going to relate to, especially if you've ever felt like you're doing all the hard work, but still getting overlooked at work. Ever been there? You're putting in the effort, delivering results, and yet somehow someone else gets that big opportunity or promotion. Well, today we're cracking the code on why that happens, especially for introverts. And more importantly, what you can do about it. We'll talk about personal branding without all the cringy self-promotion, I promise. How to build executive presence without faking extroversion, and the mindset shifts that will help you finally get recognized for the value you bring. Joining me today is Lissa Appiah, certified career strategist, certified organizational coach, and personal branding consultant. Lissa helps introverted leaders and founders grow their careers, build strong brands, and drive team success while staying true to themselves. Welcome, Lissa, to the Career Clarity Unlocked podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So glad to have you and talk with you today. And I am very, very excited to talk about introverts because that is a big part of your work. And I feel a lot of our listeners are going to relate to that. And my first question I have for you is that so many introverts work really, really hard, but then they feel overlooked for promotions. And I wonder if that has ever happened to you personally. And if there was a moment when you realized that working hard isn't enough, and then if there were any changes that you made that led to you realizing that working hard as much as we wish it would be enough isn't quite.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I experienced quite early in my career. I was in a role where there were a couple of analysts who were doing a similar job. We were doing negotiations with foreign governments. And basically, an opportunity came to be able to travel to one of the countries because we were doing most of the negotiations here in Canada. And although I was the lead on that country, I didn't get selected to go, and somebody else got selected. And in
Oh,
my head, I was just like, wait, what exactly is going on here? This doesn't make any sense.
uh-huh.
Because even in preparing this person to go on the trip, I was doing all the work, I was doing all the research, I was doing all the preparation and all that. But then this person ended up going, and they ended up getting a promotion following that trip because of the preparation and the research that they did to be able to go. And in that moment, I guess what I realized is that, as much as I had the analytical skills, I had the analytical background, I was excellent at doing the hard work and doing the research and being in the background, getting the data, the statistics, all that stuff, which is wonderful. What they really wanted was someone who could communicate it effectively, someone with personality, someone who had the charisma. And that was what I wasn't bringing to the table, which was important for this negotiation. So it made me realize that as much as I am an introvert, yes, that there were firstly certain things that I needed to work on as a professional to be able to advance in my career. And also that as much as I was working hard and getting things done, that wasn't sufficient to get me to the next level. So in that process, I was able to create a strategy for myself of how do I want to position myself within this role, and how do I become more strategic to align myself to be able to land a promotion. And something that I did that really helped is being able to understand what were the requirements for the next level. As much as in my head I was saying I want a promotion, but did I even know what was needed to get a promotion? So actually taking the time to look at job posters for roles that were above my level, 2 levels above where I wanted to go, and starting to think about, okay, how can I start to position myself for those roles? And yeah, this was a number of years ago, but since then, I landed 5 promotions in less than 8 years, had, successful career, made it to leadership and different things. But that was the moment that I realized that, okay, being an introvert is great, but I also have to learn how to navigate the workplace while still obviously staying true to myself, but also developing myself as a professional.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Even as you're just telling the story, I'm like, oh, that's so unfair. Why
Yeah.
didn't they see the hard work you were putting into it? Why did they let someone else go instead of you? I mean, I imagine that must have been so frustrating. And I feel like so many people relate to that, that something happens and they're so frustrated of work. You're overlooked for a promotion or for such a big opportunity, even though you've worked so hard for it. How were you able to turn that frustration and then actually go into like, okay, I've learned something from it and I'm gonna make a change?
Yeah, I think, I've often been underestimated in my career and in life generally. So my attitude has always been, okay, you want to underestimate me? That's fine. Let me prove you wrong. So that has always been my attitude to anything. I feel like, people underestimating me, that's a better thing for me because then I have more opportunity to shine and prove them wrong. So that's essentially what I did. I remember going to the manager a few months later, letting them know that, hey, I got a promotion, but it was with a different team. And, kind of almost like surprised, but it was like, no, I've earned this. I'm going for this opportunity. But yeah, I kind of like those moments where you can just be like, ha, in your face, I did it. So maybe it's not the right way to think about it, but that has always been my approach. And it's worked so far.
Yeah, it obviously works. And I feel like it really gives you that fire of like, you are denying me that promotion. I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm gonna prove you. And if that is the motivation to go for it, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I love that. And I know that we both coach a lot of professionals. And I wonder if you've heard about or came across people who think like, oh, coaching is just a luxury, like it's
Mhm.
really not a necessity. What do you feel is a misconception about coaching that holds professionals back? And are there any stories that show that coaching can make all the difference and it's much more a necessity than a luxury?
Yeah, I definitely think coaching is essential, but it's just about understanding really what coaching is. A lot of times people, there are so many different coaches and different specializations as well. Ultimately, what coaching is being able to partner with someone who's going to guide you through a process, to guide you through a transformation and help you get to the destination you're looking to get to. And if we really think about it, in many areas of our lives, we do have coaches. Sometimes they're in the form more of a mentor who's maybe someone who's a few steps ahead, who is providing mentorship and somewhat some coaching. Also, they can be in the form of just someone that you look up to or someone that you have had as a professor or teacher or whatever. But ultimately, it's someone who can partner with you to help you succeed in whatever you're trying to achieve. So in our case, we're talking about career coaching, we're talking about leadership development as well, and providing coaching at the organizational level. I think for me, obviously, I do understand how some people can see it as a luxury because sometimes there is quite an investment that you need to make to be able to access such services. But there are so many resources that we have available now that enable you to still be able to get some support and coaching without even getting to work with someone one-on-one. And what I mean by that is, for example, I have a YouTube channel and I provide tons of resources on my YouTube channel. And there are people who have told me, like, I've gotten a promotion by listening to this video. I've made a career change because I followed the steps that you said in that video. People I've never met before, we've never worked together, but they were able to actually hear what was shared and actually implement it. And that's what makes the biggest difference, because a lot of people will say, okay, you know, it's a luxury, it's not a necessity, all that stuff. But even in the stuff that you get for free, how much of it are you actually implementing? Because whether it's free or whether you pay for it, what will make the difference is what you do with what you receive, right? So I think for sure coaching is important, but as long as you're willing to be coachable, that's what will make the difference.
I 100% agree. And the same thing with leadership. I love that you brought up the leadership coaching, because most of us aren't born being a naturally exceptionally good leader, and it's skills, right? You learn skills to be good at it. You learn to be good at ways of communicating with your team, of promoting your team, of advocating for your team, all the different things that are so important, often more important than the hard skills. It's not that we're just born with it. We have to learn it. And it's so much more effective to learn with someone who can guide us than reading a book is good. But you're probably going to get much better when you actually work with someone who knows how to do it and can guide you and give you feedback.
Someone who can lead by example. So
Yeah.
for sure, it goes a long way for sure.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Another topic I hear you talking about quite a bit is personal branding, which I actually personally gave a workshop this morning on. So I'm in that mindset right now. And one of the common misconception I talked about is, as we've said in the first question, of like, well, I'll just have my work speak for itself. And I feel like introverts tend to gravitate to that even more, of like, I'm doing great work. It'll show that I'm good. How do you work with introverts or introverted leaders specifically to build a personal brand without them feeling like they are self-promoting or bragging and it feeling really inauthentic and weird? Is there a way for them to feel at ease or authentic doing that?
Yeah, a big thing that I help my clients understand when it comes to personal branding is that essentially it's an impression and it's a perception of how people view you in the marketplace, right? So whether or not you're intentional about building your personal brand, you have one because it's the way that people view you, it's the way that people perceive you, and it's the impression that you're giving off. So ultimately, as a professional, then you do have a role to play to control and also ensure that the narrative about your career, the narrative about your accomplishments, your achievements, is one that aligns with how you want the story to be told, or else somebody else is going to tell the story. The same way that when I didn't have a strong brand, I didn't have a strong understanding of what I had to offer, the narrative was being controlled by other people who were saying that, okay, this person is not strong enough to do the negotiation. Let's have them work in the background, do all the work, and send somebody else to do the speaking. But that was the perception I had created because I wasn't speaking up, because I wasn't showing up as a person I knew I could be, right? So as much as we want to say, oh, personal branding, I don't want to put my pictures online, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, whether you want it or not, or whether you do it or not, you already have a personal brand. So might as well control the narrative and make it what you want it to actually be. And so does it mean you have to put tons of pictures online? No. Does it mean that you have to, continuously share your accomplishments? No. It's all about finding the balance and what works for you. Especially when I'm working with introverts, some of the first conversations I always have is like, where do you want to draw the line? What's the boundary for you? I personally have boundaries with my personal brand, how much I share. It can seem like, if people see it and sometimes they're like, oh, I remember you said this, I remember you said that. But as much as I'm sharing a part of the story, there's sometimes I don't go into the details because that's where I draw the line, and that's how much I'm going to share. It's up to you. You're the one that's controlling the narrative, and you're the one that's sharing. So you have that opportunity to control the messaging, but there needs to be a message to be shared. You know, one of the first conversations I have with a lot of my introverted clients who know the importance of building a personal brand, they realize they need to build a personal brand, but sometimes there's just hesitation. And yes, sometimes it could be personality, but a lot of times it's also just fear. Like, you know, when we get down to it, it's just you know, fearful of being seen, fearful of feeling awkward, fearful of what people will say, what will my colleagues say, what will my family say. It's not always being an introvert. Sometimes there are some underlying self-doubt and self-belief that causes people to, you know, not want to be out there and express themselves and build a brand.
That's such an important point. How do you help someone when they have a really big fear of putting something about themselves out into the world? How do you help them overcome that fear and feel confident that they can do it?
There are different approaches. It kind of depends on the person. So, for example, for myself, what works for me is just do it. So, for example, I had a big fear in the early days when I started building my brand around creating video. And that was a tough thing for me that I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to create video? And I knew like this was like 2021 and you know video was becoming more and more important. So I signed up for a 30-day video challenge and I posted videos every single day for 30 days. And by the end of the 30 days, I was like, oh, that's it. Like, was this really a big deal? So for some people, that method works in terms of just do it. You put yourself out there, you let the fear go through and then you realize it's not that big of a deal. But for other people, there are sometimes some actual underlying issues that cause that resistance. And that's what we go through coaching, being able to understand like what are the self-sabotaging beliefs or anything that is preventing them from taking that step to be able to get to where they want to be. So sometimes it could be your thought process and, you know, obviously your way of thinking then influences your actions and your actions influence your results. So if we can actually find out, okay, what's this thought that you're getting that's preventing you from actually taking the step to show up the way you want to show up, then we'll be able to reverse engineer and then correct the result you're getting, the action you're taking, and then also adjust the mindset. So that's some of the work that I do with my clients of really helping them reframe the way that they're thinking about building a personal brand so that they can get the result they're looking for.
I love that. And it goes so much deeper than just the words we want to share, but
Mhm.
of building the confidence and the belief that we can do that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on everything you just shared. And what I also see with my clients a lot is they don't know how to craft
Mhm.
that message that they want to be known for. And that can be another big piece that's holding them back. And I really, that is one piece I focus a lot on in my coaching is what is it that you want to be known for? And I
Mhm.
love because your LinkedIn profile is like a blank canvas. You can tell the world what you want to be known for, but you need to know what that is. And a lot of times starting with where you want to go next, having that clarity of, okay, I want this as my next position, no matter if this moving up into a leadership role or moving into a different industry or role, you have to know where you want to go. And then you can think about, okay, what do I need to be known for to be the right person for this role? And then out of that follows your personal brand. What about you is it that makes you that great candidate?
Yes, I love the approach. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then comes 100% working through the fear of, oh my God, of the testifying things of like, oh yeah, I did that, but it was just part of my job. Do you
Yeah.
hear that too with the word just?
Yeah, all the time, all the time. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't even know that was something that I could, you know, talk about, or I didn't know that was something that was valuable because For a lot of people, ultimately, the things that they do very naturally, they're not thinking of it as, oh, this is a huge strength that I can put on my resume or my LinkedIn and I can start branding myself this way. For them, it's just something they do naturally. They don't even think about it. So, yeah, I do get that quite a bit.
And it's so powerful when people realize that what they do or what they've done has value. And it doesn't come easily to every person in this world.
Mhm.
And it has so much value. And then starting to speak about it and own it is incredibly powerful.
Definitely. And yeah, that transformation is it's ultimately what makes it worth it. When you've seen the person, going through all those coaching sessions and how fearful they were, and then finally, like now they're on LinkedIn, they're doing well, they've built their brand. It's a joy to be able to see.
100%. Oh, I agree so much. Yes. Yeah. That growth that you see, it just warms your heart. And staying on that topic of introverts, many leadership programs emphasize that you have to command the room and speak up more, and it's often a very masculine way of leading and commanding.
Mhm.
Um, when we talk about executive presence, is there a way that you coach clients or that you talk about of how introverts can be more authentic in building their executive presence without having to feel like they have to force themselves into a role to command the room or that masculine energy?
Yeah, so the approach that I take in terms of supporting introverted leaders is more a strengths-based approach. So really helping people understand the strengths that they bring to the table and how can that be leveraged to position themselves for greater opportunities or just to succeed in the roles that they're in currently. And it ties in very well to what we were just talking about sometimes people have strengths that they often overlook or that they don't value because it's something that comes to them really naturally. And something that I help my clients understand is that if you don't recognize your strengths and you don't value them, then other people won't as well. You have to own what you have, whether it's a listening skills, like that's a skill that a lot of introverts have very naturally, being able to read between the lines. You may think, oh, it's nothing, but that skill could be the solution that your company is looking for to solve a problem that they have. You could be bringing ideas to the table that often are overlooked because other people are talking, but because you're able to pay attention and analyze and think things through, you're able to bring a different direction that could ultimately help the company achieve a great result. So it's really about helping people and introverts to understand what are the strengths that they have to offer and how can they brand these as strengths that are helpful and valuable to leadership. And there's tons of data out there that supports this as well in terms of how quiet leadership and introverted leadership has positive outcomes for organizations and for teams. There was just a Forbes article released recently about how teams that were led by introverts had 28% more in terms of productivity. And that's something that you don't necessarily relate to being introverted or the personality or anything like that. But it just comes to show that, there's not one way to lead. And when you're able to allow people to adapt and allow people to lead in a way that feels natural to them and that works for their team, because ultimately, yes, let's say you're a quiet leader, but you're leading people. So you need to be able to adjust and understand the strengths of the people on your team as well. So that, you know, adaptability as a leader, that's another huge strength that helps with those success stories and, what they were sharing in that article about being able to increase productivity.
That's incredible. And I'm going to make sure to link to that article.
Sure, yeah.
28%. That's huge, 28%. And as you were saying that, a lot of my past work experience come to mind where I've worked for both. We all worked for many different leaders, right? Some that we would like to be similar to, and others where like we just learned how we don't want to lead.
Yeah.
But there were some that popped in my mind of they had really big personalities and they were great at talking, but they actually didn't get any work done. And I'm not saying that extroverts don't get work done, by no
Yeah.
means. But the two examples that came into my mind, they were promoted because they were so good at commanding a room and speaking up, even though it was backed up by pretty much no tangible work productivity.
Yep.
And
I've
then,
seen that.
yeah, and then I've worked for leaders that were very quiet and thoughtful, and they weren't that loud person in the room, but I
Mhm.
can see that their team has 28% more productivity than the other team. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, those are the kinds of stories I hear all the time in terms of working with my clients who are more introverted. And yeah, it's the unfortunate bias in a lot of workplaces, this assumption that the loudest voice or the loudest person in the room has to be the leader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And when you think about being on the team that works for the leader we're talking about, for me personally, I would much rather work for someone who listens to me, who cares to understand my perspective, who thinks things through instead of just talking. That would be so much more meaningful for me in a leader as a quality than a really strong personality that can command the room.
Yeah, and it at the end of the day it comes down to how are you how are you treating the people that you work with? You know, how is the team being able to work together to reach the common goal that the organization wants to reach? And a lot of times we focus a lot on the what in terms of what needs to get done, the bottom line, but the how we do it is just as important, but it's often overlooked. And so, that's the space that ultimately I support, leaders to be able to fill that gap, but also working with teams to help them to improve their communication and then also improve team cohesion so that they get better results. So yeah, the how is just as important, and that's how you're able to retain people. That's how you're able to have a workplace that people actually want to be in. So it does make a difference in the long run.
100%. People are just more productive when they feel valued, when they feel heard, when they feel appreciated, when they do work they enjoy, when it's a workplace they come to that they don't dread going to. It's always going to be more productive than someone who is unhappy and miserable and doesn't feel valued or heard at work.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah.
And I feel like as we were talking, it became so clear in my mind that there's no right or wrong, right? It's not introvert is better than extrovert or the other way around, but there's so much that introverts and extroverts can learn from each other. So as introverts, we can learn how they speak up and how they can show up. And more extroverted people can really learn how we listen or think about things before we say them. So I think that really the golden place to be is somewhere in the middle that matches the individual.
Yeah, definitely. I would say there's value in both, and ultimately, a team that has that diversity is going to go further than a team that's just full of extroverts or just full of introverts. So a balance is always helpful.
Yes, I agree.
But yeah, for me, really, as a leader, even when I was managing a team, something that was always important to me is being able to recognize that not everybody needs to be like me, because I know how I am, but
Yep.
I don't need 10 times me, right? So ultimately being able to recognize the value that somebody brings because they're more extroverted. This person would be great to help us with this. And because this person is more analytical, they'll be great to help us with that. So, something that I do when I'm working with teams is helping them develop what we call like a strengths map. So really helping the leader outline what are the strengths that you have currently on the team. And every time we do it, what ends up happening is that people recognize that, oh, there are strengths that this person has that I didn't even know, or strengths that we're not even leveraging on the team. So there are often untapped talent, sitting on your team right now that people aren't considering just because that tunnel vision of this is how we should be doing things and this is how we should be operating. But sometimes just taking a step back and actually having a conversation, it's amazing. Like I've talked to some managers, some leaders, they've never actually sat down with the team member to ask them like, what are your interests? What are your career plans? What do you want to, where do you see this going for you? They don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's that asking questions. I'm curious, do you use the Gallup Strength Finder as part of your strength-based leadership?
I have used it before, but I use mostly DISC. So I'm DISC certified, so I use DISC, but I have used Gallup in the past before. Do you use it as well?
I use Gallup a little bit, but I'm
Okay.
certified as a certified Sparketype advisor. So
Oh,
I do very similar works with teams as you do,
okay.
but based on the Sparketype
Oh,
assessment.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Love to hear more.
Yes.
We can take it offline. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about
Oh
it.
my God, it's the best.
Okay, cool, cool.
But I'm curious about DISC because I haven't worked with DISC yet. In what ways do you use it when you work with leaders?
Yeah, I use DISC one-on-one and then with teams as well. And it's a behavioral assessment, and then it also helps give information about communication. And it just helps you map out like where you are in terms of various personality types, and then how you can interact better with the various members on your team. So I typically use it just because it's well known. So a lot of times you say DISC and people know what you're talking about. So and yeah, it does work well. Obviously, the thing for me that I always keep in mind when I'm working with teams or with leaders is that it's just an assessment. It's not like it's not the law.
Yeah.
You get some information from it, but at the end of the day, it's always important to have those conversations with your team members and actually hear from them as opposed to just saying, "Oh, we did a disc assessment. Like this is what we're going with." Yeah.
Oh, I'm 100% with you. That's the same I always approach it. It's like, yes, that's an assessment. We can use that as one of many data points, but it is not the law. Like, you know yourself better. So if you feel one way about your work, but your assessment tells you something different, trust yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Sparker assessment is a assessment that actually doesn't measure strength. It measures how we feel when we do a certain type of work. So it measures what energizes, excites, and motivates us, and what drains us, and what empties what fills our battery and what empties our battery. And I'm so
Yeah.
passionate about it because when people get to do work that energizes them, they're happier, they do better work, the home team functions better. It's incredible how the shift is when people do work they actually enjoy and are good at, not 100% of the time, but for the majority of the time. And
Yeah.
reshifting work within a team is so powerful. And then it comes back down to, yes, we take the assessment first, but then listening and having conversations about it and seeing how does it even resonate, the assessment, or do you feel differently? And if so, how does it show up for you personally?
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. I like that that it's about energy management because for introverts that's huge, being able to manage your energy and show up as yourself in different settings. So okay, I will look it up. I'm
Oh
very
yeah,
curious.
look it up and tell me what you think. And tell me what your Sparker type is.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you know, I love it. I could talk about it all day, every day.
That's cool.
Um, so when you're now thinking we have the year ahead of us, what if you were to work with a client today? What's one mindset shift or practical action that they can start today to position themselves to for their next career move or to grow in their leadership roles? And start to take those first actions. So anyone who is listening is like, yeah, this is me of I know I'm good at the work, but I don't talk about it. What
Yeah.
can we do to get started?
I would just say, even just taking the time to look at your previous roles, your current role, and just write down a few success stories from your current job, how you've been able to impact the organization, a change that you've made that helped move things forward. If you won an award or you got a special recognition, like just take the time to either journal or put it in a Word document. For each job, write down 2 or 3 key success stories, and that will be the foundation of being able to update your resume, your LinkedIn profile, prepare for interviews, prepare for salary negotiations. And, you know, that's ultimately what we call, a brag file or an accomplishment folder. And it's something that you should be doing regularly, just keeping track of what are those key achievements that you've had. And it just makes things a lot easier, because the foundation of career development is really storytelling. It's really you're telling your stories in various places to be able to show people that you have a problem and I am the solution to the problem. Here's how I've done it before, and here's how I can do it for your company. That's really what it is. And from an employer's perspective, they want to know what's in it for them. How are you going to solve the problem they have? So being able to keep track of those accomplishments, those stories, will help you in the long run.
That's huge. I'm 100% with you. And I'm such a big fan of the accomplishment tracker as well. It's like that tangible reminder when you start questioning your worth, which most of us run into from time to time, that we can look at something and see like, oh, yes, I've done all these things. Look at me. Or if you really question yourself, does this count as an accomplishment or not, I always tell my clients, think about what would have happened if you didn't do it.
I like that. I like that.
If the end result would have been exactly the same, probably not an accomplishment. But because you did, there was a different result. That different result right there is your accomplishment.
Well said. I like that.
Thank you. And we could keep talking for hours here, Lissa. I enjoyed this so much. But I do want to wrap it up. But first of all, where can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
Sure. LinkedIn is a great place to find me. So it's Lissa with 2 S's, Appiah. And then I do have a YouTube channel as well. And my website is weapply.ca. So yeah, I'd be glad to connect there.
I love that. And we're going to make sure to have all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here with us today. This was incredible and a really powerful conversation for anyone who identifies as an introvert or struggles with speaking up, to really see the worth that they bring in the workplace.
Definitely. It's my pleasure. And thanks for the invitation, Theresa. I appreciate it.
Wow, that was such a powerful conversation. If you've ever doubted whether you can grow in your career while staying true to yourself, especially as an introvert, I hope you're walking away with some game-changing insights from this conversation. And if you are ready to take action and gain serious clarity on your next career move, I'd love to help. Book a free consultation call with me and let's unlock the career that's meant for you without any of the guesswork. You can find the link in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and we will see you next time. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Career Clarity Unlocked. If you're feeling stuck in that what's next spiral and are ready to finally break free, let's chat. You can book your free Career Clarity call where we'll uncover what's really important to you, tackle any obstacles holding you back, and map out your best next step. Schedule your free 30-minute call today on careerbloomcoaching.com. And before you head out, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. If today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration, please leave a review. It really helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend or on social media. Your support truly means the world. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.